Hi guys, Tech here, and I wanted to go over what I'm looking at playing melee only hardcore league that I Am Exile is running starting on Friday. So if this is something that you're interested in, please consider liking and subscribing. It does really help the channel out and genuinely. So this is a double strike character, which double strike is one of those underrated skills for what it does. It's an actual strike skill, so it's a little more ethical than some cross blades. But it still has really good and it's very strong for that. The other thing is we are utilizing the crit nodes from the Slayer Ascendancy plus the Troll. Now you can do this as basically this is going to be your clear skill, and then you can kind of use whatever as your boss skill. Like currently I have Fall Double Strike. You can also easily use Blade Flurry, and I will have both of those in the POB below. That way you can kind of see exactly what is going on and kind of the difference. The damage numbers are going to be a little on the low side, and that is because I'm not estimating super gear, I'm estimating okay. And that's very important when you're considering a hardcore 10-day event. You don't want to shoot for the moon on gear because likely you aren't going to get there. And now if you're a very experienced hardcore player, you can absolutely level up the gear from where I have it. If you're not super experienced in hardcore, or this is possibly your first time playing hard, my biggest piece of advice would be to really focus on defenses, because you can get everything else later. Like the damage will get there as your weapons, and like that's just the moral of the story. Hardcore, like just prioritize living. Everything else will kind of just fix itself over the course of the game. So I will also post two different POBs it'll be one POB, but it will have a leveling tree that is kind of a generic. It will have two different in-game trees, one that is a little more defensive. It still will have a little bit of offensive nodes in it, so you're not playing, a Quinn build, but it will be more on the defensive side for sure. And then I will put one that's more balanced in there, and that is basically how comfortable you are with hardcore. If you aren't comfortable with hardcore or you haven't played it very much, I would highly suggest using the defensive tree. If you are comfortable with hardcore and you played it a lot and you know how to use your plug out macros, etc., and you're pretty good at that stuff, then you can absolutely for offensive version of it. And you can also even take it up a notch from there. I did want to give kind of like a baseline video so you could see how the clear speed works, because it clears remarkably well for what it is, right? It clears actually fantastic being a play only build, which the only other one that's going to really have this kind of clear is going to be Frostblades. And Frostblades clear will be a little bit better, but the damage more than likely will be a little bit worse. And this is one of those underrated things. Like there may be a few Cyclone Slayers, but probably most people won't be going with the Slayer Ascendancy. Most people will probably be going with a different Ascendancy altogether. And so this just gives us a cool opportunity to play something that's a little bit different, but is also just really, really strong in this kind of an environment. I opted out of playing this build specifically because we didn't know what the bosses were going to be like, the new bosses, and I went with Absolution. Hindsight, I could have easily played this build and it would have been. And there's me clicking on the wrong portal because of the new shift. Like it doesn't clear out the portals as well as it used to that you click. And so this will show you kind of where we're at on this tree. As you can see, it's very, very defensive. Overall, there's a couple of offensive notes, but mainly defensive. I do have reasonable weapons, not great weapons, but reasonable weapons. And I do have Brass Dome and Acuity, which Acuity might be a stretch on a 10-day league, but they are a really good upgrade option. My spell suppression actually would be capped if I was in evasion gloves and in an evasion helm, because of the way spell suppression works. But because I decided to go with Acuity and with a Samite helm, it's just not an option. The other thing about this is you don't have to be conflated into one specific bossing skill, and Dual Strike still works as a boss killer, kind of. It's just not as strong as it is as a clear skill. And that's just because we have things like Ancestral Call in it. Or, I'm sorry, Melee Splash in it. If you don't mind losing that Melee Splash, then you could absolutely, or if you don't mind like swapping in and out of gems, absolutely do that. The other thing is Blade Flurry I've also tested, and it works really, really well as a boss killer for this as well. And that's what I was primarily using, is Dual Strike for clearing and Blade Flurry for bossing. Vol Double Strike is probably a little bit better, but it's not like the end of the world if you don't have Vol Double Strike. You can also just use Double Strike, and it is also fantastic, even without it being a Vol version. It really works well. The big thing with the Vol version of Double Strike that you can is basically get to do both at the same time. So you get to attack normally with Dual Strike while you're hitting with the Vol Double Strike. So it's just kind of nice in that regard. But if this is something you're interested in, I will have a link to the POB down below. I'll also have a link to I Am Exile's video where he goes through the rules and about the league and all that kind of. And as you can see, like, this is a corrupted boss. It's like scary, but it's not the end of the world scary. And in hardcore, it's okay to take it slow. That would be my other big piece of advice. Like, don't try to rush on hardcore. Like, go slow and steady. Like, slow and steady tends to get higher up in this kind of an environment because it's going to be limited. So your upgrade options are going to be significantly worse than they normally would be at league start. So just kind of go into it knowing that. And you're going to probably have to self-craft some. So Harvest is a really good option for that. You can just throw all those elemental rolls at swords, at thrusting swords. And I will have a specific loot filter for this league, and with more thrusting swords highlighted than normally would be highlighted, just to give you better, easier upgrade paths on the softer versions especially. But I hope this is helpful. I hope this is something you're considering doing, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Have a great day, Exiles.